Here's something I think we can all agree on. Let's begin there. We're all just trying to get some people to do something. Doesn't matter what you do, doesn't matter where you come from, doesn't matter what your role is in the organization that you work for. We are all waking up every morning, going to work, and just trying to get some people to do something that we'd like them to do. It's kind of a nice unifying thought when you think about it. Everybody in the room, we all have the same job. We're just trying to convince some people to do something we'd like them to do. But here's the problem. People are hard to understand today. They're not behaving the way they're supposed to behave. Let me give you a couple of examples. I don't know about you, but when I was young, retired people, they sat in a chair, played with their photo albums, called their grandkids. And what are they doing today? They're jumping out of airplanes. They're climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. They're having the time of their lives. They're not behaving the way old people are supposed to behave. Let's go to the other end of the spectrum. Let's look at Gen Z. What's Gen Z doing today? They've discovered vinyl. They're listening to Led Zeppelin. That's not what young people are supposed to do. $1 trillion industry in this planet is the spa industry. $1 trillion a year spent on spa services around the world, and 50% of their revenue is from men. It's kind of not what we think about when we think about the spa industry. A bunch of guys going out and getting a mani-pedi and a little pampering and having a me day at the spa. And the long-haul trucking industry. The largest growth segment for the workforce in the long-haul trucking industry is women. That's where all the new truckers are coming from. It's not what men are supposed to do, it's not what women are supposed to do, it's not what young people are supposed to do, it's not what old people are supposed to be doing. What's going on? It's really, really difficult to understand who people are. If our job is to get people to do something we'd like them to do, the first thing we need to do is figure out how to understand who these people are. Our old tools, they're kind of failing us. Demographics don't really help us anymore. But if we put aside all those typical labels and forget about those for a while, and instead start thinking about what these folks are all about on the inside, what their values are, well, then it all starts to make sense. Because you know what? Good music isn't about how old you are. It's about whether or not it resonates with your values. The job you choose has nothing to do with your gender. It has to do with what resonates for you, what resonates with your values. Values are the key to understanding why people are doing the things they do. So if we are here, all of us, united around trying to get some people to do something we'd like them to do, the first thing we have to do is agree that the current system of understanding who people are is not really all that great. It's not helping us anymore. So what can we do instead? Well, I want to tell you a little story. It's called 3 Friends in an Alley at Midnight. So 3 friends are out having a few drinks, haven't seen each other for a very long time. And these 3 friends, they've maybe had 1 drink too many, maybe 2 drinks too many, maybe 3 drinks too many. And the smart one puts up a hand and says, you know what, we got to get out of here. We got that speaker we got to go listen to tomorrow morning. We want to make sure we're bright and fresh when we get into that theater because it's going to be dark and we have a risk we might fall asleep. So they leave the theater, they're walking down the street, they're having a good time, and the first thing that happens when you leave a theater, when you leave the bar with your friends after having a few drinks you haven't seen them for a long time, is you're punching each other on the shoulder, you're telling old college jokes, you're having a really great time. And then suddenly these 3 friends turn a corner and there's a dark alley. And they have to decide, what are we going to do? So the first friend, the only thing we know about them is their primary value in life is adventure. It says, let's go down the dark alley. What a great way to end the evening. This is going to be amazing. We're a little bit drunk. I love you guys. Let's go. It's like it's been put here just for us. Second friend, the only thing we know for certain is their primary value in life is safety. Why would we do that? That sounds like the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Let's not go down the dark alley. Let's go back to the bar. We might have to turn on the lights. Who knows what might happen if we go down there? Let's not do this. And the third thing, the only thing we know about the third friend, the only thing we know about them for certain is their primary value in life is friendship. We don't care. We'll go down the dark alley. We can go not down the dark alley. I don't care. As long as we all stick together, because that's what matters most. We're a little bit drunk, and I love you guys. So the big moral of the story is, in order to understand how people make decisions about what they're going to do, because that's what we're all in the business of trying to get some people to make a decision we'd like them to make, all we have to understand is what their values are. We didn't need to know anything else about those people before it became very obvious what they were going to do in that situation. And you know what? Neither did they. Not one of them stopped and said, well, gee, I'm an 18 to 24-year-old male, I'm white collar, I've been to college, and one day I'd like to be married, but at the moment I'm single and I don't have any children, and therefore I'm going to behave this way. That's not what we do. It's not what anybody does, except when we're in our boardrooms and we sit around and start talking about the people we're trying to engage and motivate and inspire. Somehow we think that information helps us understand who people are, when in fact it doesn't. If we get into the fields of behavioral science for a moment and get a little deeper into what's actually going on when people make decisions about things. So inside your brain is the prefrontal cortex. We're all familiar with that. People talk about it as the CEO of your brain. Inside your prefrontal cortex is a smaller piece that not a lot of people know about. It's called the insula. And the insula's only job is to make decisions based on incoming data. Now, incoming data that the insula is looking at are things like sights and sounds and smells and past experiences and memories and all that little gut intuition we have. So it's making decisions for us based on analyzing all of that data and comparing it against one set of filters. And that's our values. So something comes along that might be good for our family. If family is one of our values, our insula says, oh, that's great, go get that thing. And when we go get that thing, we get rewarded with a little dopamine hit. We all know what dopamine is. Dopamine makes us feel happy. If something comes along that's going to be bad for our family, we are told to run away from that thing. And until we do, we get punished by the insula. It sends out all kinds of chemicals that make us feel anxious and uneasy and maybe even a little bit afraid until we've managed to remove that threat to our values from our radar screens. So in a very real way, our values determine every decision we make all day long, thousands of times. What you are wearing right now, the fact that you're here, the career you've chosen, the person that you're spending your life with, all of these decisions were made because they align with our values. Let me make it a little bit more personal. I want to talk to you about what might be happening to some of you today. It usually happens when we're away somewhere. We meet someone for the very first time. We'll be on a vacation at a conference. You meet someone for the very first time and you just click. We've all had that experience, right? Put up your hand. Of course we have. It's a basic human thing. And you just look at each other, and after about 15 minutes of talking, you're like, I feel like I've known you. Are you sure we haven't met before? You seem really familiar. Well, what's going on is you found someone who has the same values that you do. So something happens over on that side of the room over there. You both look at it. You're standing there at the reception last night holding your drink, and you see that thing happening over there. You can just glance at each other. You don't even have to talk because your insulas are both nodding in agreement and going, uh-huh, yep, that's, uh-huh, yeah, I saw it. I'm with you. Now imagine if you could have fast friends like that at scale. If the people that you were trying to engage and motivate and inspire and influence to do the things you'd like them to do, if you knew them that well, then your job every day would just be coming to work and doing things for your friends. We can convince our friends to do all kinds of stuff. We can plan parties for our friends. We could put ad campaigns together for our friends. We could design tourism destinations for our friends. We know what's going to make them say yes. And if we understand the values of the people we're trying to engage and influence, that's what we can get to. We can get to fast friends at scale, being a new way to think about people instead of demographics, which really don't tell us very much at all. So quick commercial, this is what my company's done. We've gone and turned values into data. Because so far, values have been very poetic. We choose pretty words that we all kind of like and say, these are my values, and these are our company values. And we put them up on the wall behind the receptionist, and we get very proud about those. But now we have data. So we've done close to 1 million surveys around the world with a team of translators in 152 different languages. And we've measured and mapped with more accuracy than you need for a PhD the shared values of everyone in 180 different countries on the planet, of about 186, 187 countries. So we've built the world's first global inventory of shared human values, and now we can use that information to understand the shared values of a group of people that we're trying to engage and influence and motivate and get them to do the things we'd like them to do. We found 3 really, really cool big things that I want to quickly go over with you. The first one is just confirmation that demographics are not our friend. Around the world, if we look at people inside any one of those demographic cohorts that we're all familiar talking about, age, gender, income, marital status, number of kids, and say how similar are the people inside those groups? In other words, how targetable are they with the messages, the campaigns, the products, the services we're putting together? It's on average 10.5%. Baby boomers only resemble each other, let's round off, about 10%. Gen Z only resembles each other about 10%. People who earn $100,000 a year only resemble each other about 10%. So Gen Z men who earn $100,000 a year, you stack them together, that's like 3 groups of people that resemble each other about 10% of the time, and then we go and spend $1 million because we think we know who those people are, and there's a 90% built-in fail. That's why we get so excited when we see a 3% return on a direct marketing piece. Like, whoa, champagne corks. That's a 97% fail, and we get excited about it because we're using the wrong tools. Conversely, if we put people into groups based on their values, the similarity of the people, the cohesion within the cohort goes up to as much as 89%. So people with similar values think about everything in their lives in exactly the same way. They're 89% targetable instead of, on average, 10% targetable. You think about this in terms of a dollar bill. You're going to spend $1 talking to a group of people and you use demographic ideas about who they are. You got about a 10% ROI, best possible case. You talk to them based on what you know about their shared values, and you got an 89% potential ROI. It's an 89-cent dollar instead of a 10-cent dollar. I don't know about you, but I want to spend the 89-cent dollar. And all we got to do is think about people a little bit differently. The last thing I want to tell you about, the last third big thing we found from this giant database of the world's shared values is this. A very hopeful number. There's only 56 values. There's only 56 things that make us different from each other, all around this big, beautiful world of ours. At this moment in time when there's so much divisiveness and hatred and anxiety and stress, it's comforting, for me at least, to know that we're not all that different. Sure, people in different parts of the world with different kinds of attitudes and politics and jobs, they have slightly different set of values, but there's 88 keys on a piano keyboard. 56 values that map out the sum total of what's driving all of us all day to do everything is not that many. I find that to be a very comforting thought. And today, we're very lucky. We have organizations who are adopting this values-driven way of looking at the world. Organizations like PayPal and Google and Lululemon, the United Nations Foundation, the Environmental Defense Fund. These organizations are starting to use values to understand people. And word's spreading through stories that have been written about the work we're doing in publications like Forbes and Harvard Business Review and Inc. magazine. But I have to tell you, my biggest source of joy is that Valuegraphics are now in textbooks next to demographics being used on campuses all over the world. The next generation will never know a world where we only think about people based on surface level characteristics. That will grow up knowing that what's on the inside is more important, or at least as important, as the same way we've been looking at people for the last 1,000 years. What does that leave us with? I'm not saying demographics are entirely bad. We still need them as a way to put a fence around a group of people. There's still a certain demographic reality around a target audience that we're trying to convince to do something that we'd like them to do, and that's fine. But let's stop there. All it does is put a fence around a group of people and say, here's their age, gender, income, marital status. It doesn't tell us who they are, it just tells us what they are. So let's keep using them for the who part, but not the what part. Psychographics, the second way we tend to look at people. Psychographics are a record of how people have behaved and felt so far. What are their preferences, likes, dislikes, purchase behavior? Have they visited my country, my city, my destination in the past? All great to know, but it's all a glance in the rearview mirror. So it's not really helping us, because that's like driving the car, looking in the rearview mirror, and you can't see what's out the front of the car. We need to understand how to get people to do the thing we want them to do next, not the understanding the things that they did yesterday. So demographics are a description of a group of people, what they are, not who they are. Psychographics are a record of how they've behaved so far. And valuegraphics are the tool you can use to understand how to engage and influence and motivate them for what they do next. Okay, I pulled some data specifically for you that I want to share with you. about a couple of studies we did to get me ready for today. We looked at visitors who would like to come to Canada specifically for Indigenous tourism experiences. And we studied two of our largest inbound markets, Germany and California, so that we could look at these folks who are particularly interested in coming to Canada for Indigenous tourism experiences from these two places in the world and say, what are their values? What's driving them to make that decision? Because remember, their insulas are saying that's the thing we want to do. So there's something going on that they all have in common that are driving them to make this decision. And if we can detect that, it'll be very, very useful. Now what I've done after I show you the data is I've connected what we found around a couple of their values. I mean, I can stand here for hours and talk about all the in-depth information that we found, but I'm just trying to make a point here quickly. I'm connecting what I see as a particular Indigenous experience in Canada that they could have to their values. So we can say, wow, people with those values, this would be the thing to say in order to get them to come and do the things we'd like them to do. And of course, each of these is just one example, right? This is one simple way, couple values, one example. I don't want you to think this is the depth and breadth of what's possible once you understand the values of the people that you're trying to reach. Visitors from Germany, one value that they have, that they over-index on compared to everybody else, is the value of belonging. They want to feel like they fit in. They're going to find values alignment and get that dopamine hit wherever they feel like they fit in. They're also driven by the value of personal growth. Another one of the 56 values that could have shown up in their profile, but we got belonging, we got personal growth. Specifically, around personal growth, the definition for them is that they want to grow in any way that leads to more autonomy. The personal growth they're looking for is about remaining autonomous, in charge of their own lives and their own destinies. And they're driven more so than everyone else by the value of possessions. They like their stuff. Certain objects in their life have great meaning for them and can really transform how they view the rest of their life and the rest of their journey. Okay, so what do those mean for me? For me, those three values, our visitors from Germany would be very interested and find values alignment around the potlatch ceremony. Now, for those of you who don't know, potlatch is a ceremonial feast. It's very important to Indigenous peoples of the northwest coast here in Canada, especially the Haida, Tlingit, Timsham, Kwakwakwa, Nuksalk, and Nuchalnuth. And yes, I had to check my notes to make sure I didn't leave anybody out. It's a very, very important part of that culture. So there's a great deal of alignment around that particular thing. During a potlatch, leaders and families, they give gifts of meaningful possessions to the people who are attending. They come together to share stories and celebrate milestones, moments of personal growth. And they come together in a sense of belonging. They belong there. We're all here together. Now let's look at people from California. They're different. They have a different set of values that is driving them to be interested in Indigenous experiences here in Canada. One of them is community. The value of community. They want to just feel a general sense of being part of a group. Another one is compassion. Lots of different definitions in the database for what compassion means, but for this particular group, it's about caring for others. And lastly, the value of harmony. They're magnetically drawn, with their insula giving them orders, to anything that helps them find peace with themselves and with others. So for me, the connection to an Indigenous experience here is a fairly logical one. It's the sweat lodge. The sweat lodge is this ceremonial structure. It varies from community to community and culture to culture, but it's a structure used by many Indigenous communities in Canada, and people come together inside the sweat lodge in a community ritual of sharing and caring and cleansing, and it's all about compassion for yourself and for others. It includes prayers and stories and ceremonies for healing and finding peace and harmony after you're finished and leave. So that's California and Germany separately. But let's say we were trying to do something and talk to them together, and we weren't going to make that geographic distinction. What values do both groups share? Those are ones where they're different. Here's a few where they're the same. The first one, and I love this one, it's the value of tradition. And I have to tell you, in all the work we've done all around the world, and everything from finance to banking, insurance, real estate, tech, human resource, all the different things we've done, tradition shows up very rarely. So for us to find two groups in two studies, granted around a similar topic, who both have high indexes around the value of tradition, it's very rare. And the specific definition of tradition that drives these people, the alignment they're looking for, it all has to do with deep respect for those who came before. It's about the old ways. It's about the elders. It's about the ceremonies and the ancestors, which I couldn't find any more appropriate for what we're talking about today. They also share the value of positive environments. Now, this is an interesting value, one of the 56 values in the Valuegraphics database. Positive environment people like to see the glass half full, not half empty. It's a nice, broad, general definition, but in this case, the specific flavor of positive definitions, positive environments, the specific definition they're looking for, has something to do, again, with well-being and peace. And then finally, the value of experiences. That's a lovely one for everyone in this industry who's in this room concerned about the topics you are here to talk about. They share, California, German tourists, visitors who want to come to Canada for Indigenous experiences, they share the value of experiences. In fact, it's so important to them that every single major decision they make in their life will be weighed against how it will impact their ability to go on and have the experiences that they want to have. They won't buy a car or a home or anything without going, oh, is that going to impact my vacation? Is that going to impact this other experience that I'd like to have? So it's a particular kind of experiences. So I think if we're trying to find an Indigenous experience for people from both sides, from California and Germany, what they will love here in Canada is the fire circle. Now, around the fire, we've all sat around a campfire, but in Indigenous life, the fire is where stories are told, often stories of the ancestors, stories told by the elders, essential teachings and rituals take place. The fire circle is a very powerful experience, and so it hits the values for both our friends from California and Germany. It's a place of peace and well-being. We get our positive environment value aligned when we're there as well. Now, none of those recommendations around those particular pieces of data may be earth-shattering. It's not hard to see how the logic goes from a set of values that drives a particular group of people, leads to some of these things that I know everyone in Canada who's in the tourism industry is already very focused on these three experiences. But what's different is the guesswork is gone now. We know which ones work for our German visitors, which ones work for our Californian visitors, and which ones are going to work in places where we're trying to talk to everybody all at the same time. The guesswork is removed. That's what's different here. We can be precise around what we say, what we build, what we do, what our policies are, how we build out regenerative tourism, sustainable tourism, and think about how this industry can move forward and become a force for good. Values can help us get there. Values show us where we have similarities on the inside, not worrying about what we look like on the outside. So, a couple of quick things I want to leave you with, ways that you can find values, because I know you're not all here to talk about visitors to Canada for Indigenous tourism experiences. So you may be asking yourself, well, that's great, but how can I find the values of the people that I'm trying to understand? Well, you can hire my company, but that's not, it's not for everybody. I've written a book. You can get it on Amazon. And in case this sounds like a financial plug on my part, anybody who's ever written a book and it's got it up on Amazon, you make about 50 cents a copy, right? So if you all bought 10 copies, I might have enough for a nice bottle of wine. So this isn't about me making money. The reason I'm telling you about the book is called The Death of Demographics. Nice dramatic title. The reason I'm telling you about the book is there's a 15-question quiz in there that we've tested around the world. Use that quiz, steal it, please, take it home. Use it with your CRM systems. Find ways to talk to people. Ask them those 15 questions, and the responses, once you tabulate them, will point you to one of the chapters in the book where we talk to you about one of the 15 archetypes that we found in the global database. And in that chapter, we spill everything we know, everything that you're going to need to know in order to start using values to talk to those people. So I hope that gets you started going down the values road. And then there's these 3 questions you can use that we call the 3 telltale questions. This is free. You don't have to buy a book. These 3 questions, if you ask them often enough and listen for how people are responding, even just do this with your friends, these will surface people's values. First question, why do you go to work? People will have all kinds of different answers for that. It's my creative outlet, it's to pay for my family's bills, it's because I want to leave a legacy, it's because it's where my friends are, it feels like I'm making a difference by going. Those are values bubbling to the surface. Second question, you've just won the lottery. Why would you give away half? Same process. Ask the question, listen for the patterns in the noise. Those are values bubbling to the surface. Third question, what would you say if you had a chance to say one thing to yourself from 10 years ago? What would that one thing be, and why would you choose that one thing? And there's always a smart ass who says, buy Google stock. You say, okay, great, you're funny, you're hilarious, but let's get real here. And what's really the answer to that question? It's a great thing to ask your friends after you've had a couple glasses of wine the next time you're having dinner. Now, if you're interested in any of these slides, any of the information I've provided, those 3 questions, all of that stuff, I put together a little document, and I've got a URL for you that you can, it's a nice, easy one to remember. It's valuegraphics.online/Canada. I'm sure the organizers will put that on the site or somewhere so you can go and download all of this stuff. I'd like to start to wrap up by telling you something very personal. I hope you're all familiar with this. This is the LGBTQ+ flag. I'm a member of the LGBTQ+ community myself. So that's a label that you can put on me. But it doesn't tell you who I am. It leads you to use stereotypes about who I am. It's not about my values. Yes, I'm proud to be part of this community. But it's not going to help you market to me. It's not going to help you build products and services and brands and institutions and ideas that will appeal to me. Some of you may not be familiar with this flag. This is the flag of the Métis Nation. I'm also a part of this community. I'm an Indigenous citizen of Canada. My late grandfather, Pettigrew, survived the residential school system. I would be standing here today. So it's another label. It doesn't tell you who I am on the inside. And if you try and talk to me based on what you think you know about me because of these labels, it's not going to work. We have to get past the stereotypes. I've got one more thing to share. I was going to put these on, but I'm holding this clicker, so I'll just put one on. These are my gym gloves. Every day when I'm at home, I go to the gym at the same time. And when I'm there, I meet this group of guys that are always there at the same time. And we're all different ages. I'm the oldest, sure. I think I'm the only gay one. I'm pretty sure I'm the only Métis one. But we have white collar, blue collar. We've got people who are rich. We've got people who are poor. We've got people with all colors of different pigments in their skin. If you look at us based on our demographics, we don't make any sense. Why are we all together? Why does this group mean so much to all of us? What brings us together and binds us is our values of personal growth, health and well-being, friendship, community. That's why we're there and why we're a group. Talk to me based on those values, and you'll be able to get me to do the things that you'd like me to do. One last thought before we go. It's really important for us to think about this from a larger context, a much larger context. What I've hopefully started to get you thinking about today is how values are a far more powerful way for you to succeed with the work that you have to do and the important conversations that you're here to have over the next couple of days. And I applaud you all for taking the time from your busy schedule to be here and do this. It will make you more successful. But here's the important piece. The longer we continue to use demographics to try and understand each other, the longer we end up resorting to stereotypes. Because if we know that the people we're trying to engage and influence and motivate and inspire are 73% female, what are you going to do with that? You make everything pink? It sounds hilarious, but I challenge you to go into a toy store and look at the pink toys and the blue toys and tell me that stereotypes are not clear and present in the way our companies, our organizations, and our own brains approach the world. And those stereotypes themselves are not the worst problem. The biggest problem is those stereotypes fuel ageism, racism, sexism, homophobia, ... I don't need to stand here and tell you the rest of that list. These demographically defined problems that we're grappling with around the world today, and not, in many cases, doing a very good job of. So here's the good news to end on. It's an easy fix, a really easy fix. All we need to do is change the way we look at people. You don't need to build new factories. You don't need to invest in a lot of software. You don't need to go through massive organizational change. You just need to change the way you think about people. And start with yourself. What are your values? Then move out a ring. What are the values of the people that I love? What are the values of the people I work with? What are the values of the people that my job requires I understand so that I can convince them to do something I'd like them to do? And if we all leave this room today just changing the way we look at people, our values will bring us together. Our values will unite us. Our values are the answer. Thank you.